Hi there, my name is Amanda, and today's video is an exciting introduction for a new series that I'm going to be starting on my channel. Today's introduction is for the Pan That Palette series, and as you can tell by the title, I'm going to attempt to pan my ABH Soft Glam palette and also a face palette, my Smashbox Cali Contour palette. So I do want to mention very quickly that I have tried to film this video quite a few times in the past few days. I live in Southern California, and as you may know, there's a lot of fires happening, and I live pretty close to some of them, so the smoke has been irritating my eyes, and I've been crying my makeup off when trying to do this video because my eyes are so irritated. So in terms of when I want to track my progress, it's gonna be around the 15th of each month, I think, and that's where I'm starting off of for this project as well, even though I am filming a few days late. So this project for me is going to be more of a companion project, especially in the eyeshadow portion. So if you're not familiar with my channel, I do film a Pan Those Eyeshadows series, which I will link up above. So I think what I'd like to do is use Pan That Palette as a companion project to Pan Those Eyeshadows. So because I want to use Pan That Palette as more of a companion project, I'm thinking it will be more exciting to film updates every 2 months. So my next update should be going up around mid-November. So the reason why I want to start that Pan That Palette series is because of this particular palette, my ABH Soft Glam palette. And I have a few reasons why I decided to choose this palette to attempt to pan. So one of the reasons that I want to attempt to pan this palette is because I love this palette. Another reason why I decided to choose this palette is because I've seen a lot of people panning the ABH Modern Renaissance palette, and everybody from what I have seen has said that it's an easier formula to pan, so I definitely wanted to jump into this project with something a little bit easier to pan. I did try to pan my Tartelette in Bloom a couple years ago, and that was not a very successful project for me. There was a lot of product in that palette, and those shadows are very hard pressed. So I feel like I've learned from that experience, and that's another reason why I decided to choose this palette. I'm kind of learning from that past experience. I wanted to do an easier formula to pan, and I also wanted I wanted to choose a palette that had a little more diversity than the Tartelette in Bloom palette. And then another major reason why I chose both of these palettes is because they both have really good progress already. I've already made quite a dent in both of these palettes. I should just attempt to finish them up to move them out of my collection. So first let's talk about the ABH Soft Glam palette and see where I'm starting at. Alright, so this is what my palette currently looks like. So as you can see, I have 9 pans in this palette already out of 14. So I have been working on this palette. I love this palette. This has been in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project quite a few times, and this is one of my favorite palettes in my collection. So I want to talk about my ultimate goals for this palette. I want to finish 11 out of the 14 shades here, and they are the shades from Tempera to Bronze, and then from Dusty Rose to Rustic. So these 3 deeper shades, I would love to hit pan in all 3, but if I don't, I'm not going to be upset. Using these darker shades is not as much my makeup style, and I really use darker shades mostly for liners. As you can tell, the pan in Cypress Umber is more of a liner pan, so if I hit pan in these 2, fantastic. If I don't by the time I finish the other 11 shades, I'm not going to be mad about it. So in terms of goals that I'd like to have in a 2-month span, I think I really just want to reach into this palette as much as I can. I want to attempt to track uses so that I can try to reach into all of these shades at least a couple times in 2 months. And I don't think that's going to be too hard, especially certain shades like Tempera. I use that to set my lid for every single look now, and I finished the top of both corners in this shade. So I just have this left, and I will just continue to reach into it to set my lids. I've been using Noir as the black liner shade for me if the look calls for a black liner. I've been using Cypress Umber if the look calls for a brown liner. So I'm definitely getting use out of some of these shades. Some of the more colorful shades in the palette, meaning not white or black. I hope that I will find ways to use them along with my Pan Those Eyeshadow shades. I know I've been using Rustic with one of my shades. I've also been using Fairy with that same shadow that I'm thinking of. So I think the rotation of Pan Those Eyeshadows is going to heavily influence what shades I'm reaching into within this palette. And I'm sure there's going to be a few times where I reach into this palette only, and I'm sure there's going to be times where I don't reach into this palette at all. So setting goals isn't really something that I want to do for a 2-month span. I just kind of want to see where I start and where I can go in 2 months. And then I'm also going to be bringing in my Smashbox Cali Contour palette. I love this face palette. This is my travel palette. I don't even need to take an eyeshadow palette with me if I bring this. These shades work really well for me and for my skin tone. And if you're looking for an all-in-one palette, I highly recommend this, especially if your skin tone is similar to mine. I think you will really enjoy it. So now I want to show you the inside of this palette and where I'm starting. So this is what my palette currently looks like. So as you can see, I have 2 large pans and 1 smaller pan. And I also have really good dips in the bronzer and the bronze highlighting shade. I use all of the shades in this palette. So my goals with this palette are a lot more liberal than with the Soft Glam palette. My major goals, I think, are going to be to finish the setting shade, and I want to finish this bronzer. I think in the process, because I always mix these 2 shades together now, I think I'm in the process at least going to hit pan in this bronze highlight. I like this blush, but I don't tend to reach for it all the time, and when I do, I don't usually do something very heavy. So I feel like this is something that I'm not going to really focus on. If I end up hitting pan in it or end up making a really big dip, I think that'll be great. But I think my main focus is really going to be on these 2 corner shades. I want to continue making progress in this contour shade and in this lighter highlight shade. I use this palette pretty much every day. Most of the time I am reaching into 4 out of 6 of these shades. So I do get pretty good use out of it on a daily basis. And I think this is going to be a palette that I at least end up finishing the bronzer and the settings shade. So why not track my progress while I do it. Alright, so that's the introduction to my Pan That palette series with the ABH Soft Glam and the Smashbox Cali Contour palettes. I'm really excited to start seeing progress in these palettes. These have both been palettes that I have thought about just making a Pan That palette series with for a long time. So I'm really excited to finally just start and get into it. If you're interested in panning content, especially eyeshadow panning content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. You can also follow me on my Instagram, which is @useitupmakeup. I post things like makeup of the days, makeup empties, things related to using your beauty products. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!